Hi, welcome to the Agoja Art Studio. I'm Carmen Alana Tibbets, and with me today is this strange looking fellow who is a tiger salamander, and he happens to be made out of leather. I don't use leather or suede a lot because I find it a little bit tricky to work with, but I do use it every once in a while, so I thought I would talk about the particular techniques that I use when working with leather. So let's get started. Well, I don't have a lot to say about working with leather because I just don't do it very much. That being said, I actually just finished two figures, this one here and the salamander, that have a lot of leather stuff going on. So this is suede, and here I have a jacket. It has a little bit of a wool overlay, and then I have sleeves and a hood. So all of this is stitched by hand, and that is what I suggest doing. So I use the same pattern that I usually use, and then, let's see, I'll flip this guy over. And then all the seams are just overlapped, just a little bit, you know, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch would be a lot. And then this is hand stitched with just a running stitch, and maybe a back stitch every 3 or 4 stitches if I need it. Did the same thing with the hood. In this case, I've got this lace thing going on here, and this is not attached to the leather. The sleeve is stitched shut by hand, and I try to do the minimum amount of stitching. I don't work on a sewing machine because even though I have a really good sewing machine, I just always have problems just dealing with knots in the thread, and my machine doesn't like it, and you have to get a special needle, and this is faster. So the stitching, no gluing. I tend not to use glue because I think that stitching is reversible and it's certainly less messy, and you know, it's faster, I think, once you get into the practice of using it. So this is suede, and then this is Mr. Salamander here, and he has a full-blown long leather coat. And so I covered this head with the leather, and then I made the coat out of the same leather. And you can see that this is very, very thin. I think this was like it was a lady's motorcycle style jacket, but it's a very thin leather. And that's the key. You want to get the thinnest, most flexible leather that you can find, and then you just cut out the pattern pieces as they are, and then you would just, you know, you can see here the line of stitching, it's overlapped, and it's just pretty simple stitching. For the head, you can see if you're going to try and go over something three-dimensional, in this case I elected to cover the head by stretching the leather over, and then this is all hand stitched on. You really do need that flexible leather, so that's the key. You want to find the thinnest leather possible, because then it will be more flexible on the doll or to cover a part of the doll, and then the garments will look better as they're worn. To stitch, I use just plain old buttonhole twist. It's one of my go-to threads, and usually something like a milliner's needle. You can use a glover's needle, which has a very sharp point. It tends to be a thicker needle, and it has that flat point, but I find that the thickness of the needle makes it difficult to push through some threads. So if you have some thimbles, that would be useful to use, and I just use my quilting thimbles, and they have the little divots here which allows me to push through the leather really easily. So I don't like to do a lot of stitching because it is physically more demanding on the fingers, so I don't do any embroidery or beadwork or anything like that. So if I'm going to embellish, like I have with this guy here, he's got his little salamander spots, I use a paint that is made specifically for leather, and this is Angelus leather paint. It's an acrylic paint, but it has something in it so it attaches very firmly to the leather, and as it moves around it won't flake or peel off, which is important. So you could even use this to embellish shoes and leather coats and stuff like that. It's really inexpensive. You don't need a lot of colors. I only have, you know, yellow, blue, red, and then black and white, and with those you can mix anything that you want. And so on this guy here, this is a dark jacket, and I had to do 2 layers of the paint. It's very thin and easy to use. It has no odor, so don't be afraid to use that. It's great stuff. So that being said, I don't use leather a lot because it's just kind of difficult to stitch, and it's also difficult to find the thin stuff. But if you do, give it a try because you can definitely get some really interesting effects. Hope this is helpful. See you next time. Bye-bye.